Hey everyone. So the calibration website got an update just over a week ago, version 2.1. And in this update, you can fine-tune the stick calibration even more to get a better circularity and to adjust the center as well if needed. There were a couple questions on how to use this the most effectively, so I want to show that off in the video. I think the fine-tuning is mostly going to be useful if you work with Hall effects or TMR joysticks, because sometimes what will happen is it won't fill in the circularity completely. For that reason, I'm using this controller where I installed the GuliKit TMR joysticks, and this is the first time that I plugged it in, so I don't have it calibrated yet. So I'm just going to start with the stick center like we usually do. And then I'll do the stick range. And then for stick range, I do like to go both ways. So I go clockwise and then also counterclockwise. Okay. So let's just save these changes. We'll have a baseline. This one already looks quite good, so I don't know if this is going to be the best example where you will see the differences. Also for the testing, I do like to go both ways because I noticed that sometimes it depends what direction you're going. We can also do it on this website. I've noticed this one gives a bit lower error sometimes, and the explanation that I got from the Owl, the developer of this website, is because Gamepad Tester uses less of these triangles, so it's less accurate. Whereas here you're gonna fill in the circle a lot more evenly because of the amount of triangles. There are a lot more over here. So I do prefer to use this website because it gives a better representation. Like for example, this blue triangle here. It actually, I believe that's 2 triangles. The Gamepad Tester won't show this because it's too small of an area. Okay, so let's just go to the fine-tuning. It looks quite daunting at first. I do recommend take a screenshot before you change anything. So if you mess up, you can always return to these values. Now my center is already good. Like occasionally this one goes, well, it's a bit on the plus side. But I do want to change. I do want to show you how to change these if you need to. So I'll use this Y as an example. Let's say your circularity, or let's say your center after calibration looks like this, where it is always just a bit too much off center. All right, and no matter what you do, you can't really get it correctly after recalibrating. So what you can do then is identify if it's the horizontal or the vertical axis. In this case, it's the vertical axis. You can see that while I am lowering this number, the center point also goes lower. And you can see the plus point goes higher. So it deviates more. So I'm just holding the up arrow on my keyboard, and I'm going until I see 0.00, around there. And then you can check again, does it stay at 0? Just pull it to a side, let go. I would say 0.01 is also acceptable. You can't really get it perfect every single time. And you will notice it a lot more if you slowly get it to the center. Here I got 0.02. And if I do it upwards, minus 0.03. So I would say this is acceptable, especially because if you do it slow, that's like the worst case scenario. Typically when you play, you just bring it to a side and you just let it go. In that case, 0.01, 0.02 sometimes, but I would say this is acceptable. And if I look back on my screenshot, it used to be 2172. So yeah, I'm like 12 points above. So the next thing you can do is you can fine tune the range calibration, and you can do that in each direction separately. So let's start with the left joystick and then moving upward. What I do is I push my joystick up and I look at this value over here. It now says -1. I lower this number until I see minus 0.99. Right there. So now it doesn't reach 1 anymore. And I go up until I see 1 again. I just round that up to 540. So let's do the same thing here. I'm holding it to the left of the joystick, and I'm gonna press the arrow down. There, now you can see the x-axis, 0.99. And there, let's just do it an even 400. Okay, so there's a small difference between these two values and these two values. You can already see two of them are relatively low, these are relatively high. If I lower this 540, it actually brings the maximum distance closer to the center. However, for these two, that's the opposite. I have to raise the number, and only when I raise it, it will actually bring it closer to the center. So I raised it until it's plus 0.98, and I'm gonna lower it until it's minus. So let's get that to 3390. Okay, next let's go down. And then remember, I have to raise the number. There we go. Now I see 0.99. Okay, so the boundary is around here. So let's lower it until around 3670. So the reason why I keep rounding it up, well, I round it up with these and then I round it down with these. If I save and I check the circularity, you'll see that sometimes it won't fill in the circles. And if I do it the other way, there's an even bigger side here. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. We can do one more test, and that is to move the joystick around each axis. Here, I want to look if it actually reaches 1 if I move it from left to right. So here, for example, okay, it did it once, it didn't do it again. There we go. So now it's, there we go. It is not reaching 1 fully. So that means I need to raise this number a bit more. I like to do it in increments of 10. And now let's check again. There we go. What I aim for is consistency. So if it happens just once, I just increase it again. And the top side is already quite consistent. I don't notice anything there. And then for the right side, I'm looking back here again. So does it reach 1? It does. Okay, and now let's do the bottom. Yeah, I can already immediately see that it doesn't reach +1. So that means because it's at the bottom, I decrease it by 10. You don't have to pick 10, I just like to pick 10. And then test it again. Okay, that does seem more consistent now. Okay, so we have our settings for the left stick. Let's save, and let's check the circularity. Okay, so we have some light blue marks still at the top, which is fine, we can still fix that. And keep in mind that's with a counterclockwise motion. Now, if we do a clockwise motion, that wasn't a good circle. Let's redo that. Yeah, if I do a clockwise rotation, I see that it's also still light blue at the bottom. This is the part where it's very individual for each joystick. At the top and bottom, I'm going to increase each side by 5. And then the right side I'm going to increase by 10. Or I said that wrong, actually. Because the bottom and the right, they work differently. So I have to decrease the bottom, I have to decrease the right side, and increase the top. So let's put that on 5. Let's decrease this by 5. Let's decrease this by 10. And I'm not saving yet. Okay. We can see it's a bit thinner. Okay. There it's not. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna increase this by 5, decrease this by 5, and I'll leave that the same. And it's also important to redo this a couple of times. As you can see, the first time it seemed to be fine. And the second time, and now the third time, we can still see some blue triangles. And it does matter like which side you're going for. So I see it still on the top right and the bottom right. So it's gonna be a bit playing around, but I'm gonna just do each side by 5 again. So I'm increasing this one, I'm decreasing this one, and I will also decrease this one by 10 again. There's some blue area. Yeah, so we can now see there's a consistent blue area still here. And now I'm moving the other direction. It seems consistent. I don't see anything out of the ordinary yet. Okay. But if I go the other side again, there is still a piece of blue here. So I'm going to increase this by 5. And I'm going to decrease this one by 5. And when checking it again, I still see some blue, which means I'm going to increase it by 5 again. Yeah, okay, so I do get the blue consistently, so it's not just an error. Let's increase it by 5. Let's let's decrease this by 5. It's very easy to make that mistake. But as you can see, what happens when I increase the top, the right side does get better, but the left side now gets a bit worse. And that's often not something that, at least that I know how to fix. You can say, oh, we'll decrease the top again, but then you get like a light blue area here. And if you then decrease the right side to make up for that, you're gonna get some at the bottom right again. So this is just a trade-off. You can aim for the lowest possible error and have like some blue shaded regions, some light blue shaded regions. Or you aim for consistency like me, and you get just like a couple percent, maybe 1% in this case, because I didn't exactly see it, but I remember 1.2 error percentage. But this is quite consistent. So, and then if you really want to check what your actual circularity is, what I recommend doing is rotate it a couple of times in one direction. And you can see as you keep moving it, the error percentage does increase. And then change the direction and do it the other side. It is normal for the error percentage to increase while you do this because you're essentially taking the overshooting areas of both directions. But that is the most accurate way to get a reading. Okay, and now I'm gonna speed through this a bit and then do the right side. You can see even with the regular calibration, if I do one circle like this, it has a blue area and it has a red area here. So I'm curious to see how this is gonna turn out. If I can manage to decrease this red area and increase the blue area. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so I feel confident that this is it. If I go to the left, I get a full circle. And if I go to the right, I also get a full circle. So let's test both of them. And we can see how we did with our error percentages. So as I said at the start, these two joysticks happen to be very good already. And I wasn't convinced we would get like a very high difference. And it seems I was kind of right, because it's like, it seems to be like 1% lower. But I hope nonetheless you did learn something from this video on how you can use the fine-tuning. And as you can see, it helped get this lower. I think this was slightly lower. I'm gonna have to recheck it in the recording later. But yeah, this is how to use it, and we can now save the changes. We can reboot it, we can unplug it, and we will see that if we click on this again, the changes are saved, and I see immediately I need to increase, or I need to decrease this just slightly. So let's do that. Yeah, that's one thing. These are quite close together. Don't accidentally change these when you're trying to change this one. I'm just gonna decrease it by 10 just to be safe. And I can also do it on the other website, just to do quickly. So this gives around an error of 3 and 4%. I'm expecting this one to be slightly lower. Actually, it's higher. Okay, that's not what I had expected, but for the people who may be interested in seeing these numbers, or who like to compare with this one instead, you can expect around 3.5 and 4.7 on Gamepad Tester, or around 3.1 and 4.1 on the Calibration website. I hope this video helped you in understanding how the fine-tuning works. I didn't go too in-depth on how to center the X and the Y. In my experience, this like automatic calibration of the stick center is already working quite well. But if you need to, you saw that by adjusting these numbers, you can see the stick middle point. I don't know how to call that. You can see the dot here move. And if you just click cancel, it goes back to the center. So that's all there is to this new fine-tuning feature. It's still in beta, just keep that in mind. The website's now in version 2.1, as you can see here. And if you're watching this in the future, it can look a bit different, but the steps will be the same. And I hope you can follow along. And if you still have any questions after this, feel free to let me know either in the comments or in Discord. I will link the Discord server, which you can also find here in the description. And you can ask questions there. So thanks for watching. See you next time.